Hey, it's Adeline Van Dyke from Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in Utica. I always get asked, why do I love real estate? It's very simple. I love my clients. I love every single thing about helping them find or sell their home. Making sure the home is solid and ready for sale, or solid and ready for the buyer's inspection, to making sure that they're getting the best rate on their mortgage, making sure they're getting the best price on their house. You know, just everything involved in the sale is vital. My absolute favorite part of real estate is when a buyer walks into the house they're going to buy. I can feel it before they even know they're loving the house. It's just that obvious. So I'd love to experience that feeling with you. So give me a call. Adeline Van Dyke, Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-404-6431. Or you can find me on Facebook or visit my website at centralnewyork.com/Adeline. Thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you home.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
In the Mohawk Valley, for the best real estate service, you gotta have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222 or www.centralnyhomes.com.
The following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
We're gone. All right, welcome. It is a special Wednesday night edition of The Baseline. JP Schofield here with my co-host Sean Patrick Gaffney, SPG. And we are live from Utica, New York, the heart of New York State, right by Syracuse. Let's go Orange tonight against the Arizona State
Sun Devils.
Sun Devils. Yeah, I paused for a second on that.
And it is a cold, snowy night in central New York.
The opposite of Sun Devil weather right now.
But we're still dreaming of spring and summer in baseball talk, and we're excited to be here.
We are.
Before we get into too much baseball talk, I do want to mention that we are extremely excited to be a part of the Disruption Network team. And we thank everybody here at the crew for welcoming us and being open to us talking some baseball here on the D.
There are big things, I think, on the horizon for this company, and there's a lot of motivated people in this company. So if you have the opportunity, check out some of our sister shows. We got Ease, Beats, and Bizz, Home Free, our football podcast, The D-Line. Every single day you got EC Radio with our host, Anthony Z. Donaldson.
Back Talk with Tommy Drama.
Back Talk
all
with
sorts of
Tommy
great
Artessa.
stuff going on here at the D. Make sure you check out the website, disruptionnetwork.net. All the content's on there. You can check out all the shows, all sorts of really cool content there. Great website. Todd did an excellent job, and get out there, check it out.
Absolutely. Can't say enough stuff about what's going on here at the Disruption Networks here in Utica, New York.
And one more thing I wanted to mention, too, is the St. Patrick's Day Parade that the D is putting on this coming Saturday, March 17th, on St. Patrick's Day. Down at O'Donnell's, live broadcast, all sorts of fun stuff going on. It's going to be a good time, so head on down to O'Donnell's, and you'll see a whole bunch of us down there. Barrack Street.
Utica, New York.
Always a crazy scene down there.
If anybody from a drivable distance hasn't been to Utica and experienced our parade, it's a pretty good. It's a pretty good showing. We do it no disservice. So come on down, check us out.
And a friend of the D, a sponsor of ours, is putting on the party, is sponsoring the party. It's attorney Nick Pasalacqua. For legal help quick, you better call Nick. Call attorney Nick Pasalacqua and the team at Pasalacqua and Associates. 315-500-NICK, CNYTriallaw.com. So Nick's putting on the party, and we thank him for that, and go out show him some love, and check out his website. And 315-500-NICK if you need him. He'll be there for you.
Outstanding. So we have a pretty good show to get to here. We had a lot of stuff, a lot of activity this week in the what was a dead free agent period this spring.
It really heated up the last week or so, though.
And as we expected, and as most experts out there expected, and a lot of the sites that we've all read, we're expecting a lot of one-year deals to come down the pike. But the Jake Arrieta signing, not a one-year deal, and a pretty unexpected dark horse. And we're going to get to that stuff coming up here soon. We got a lot of segments, everybody. Hope you stick around this week. Stick around for our 7th inning stretch. We're going to let you know our top 7 managers in Major League Baseball. Back to news and notes, though. Busy week.
It was a busy week, and getting back to what you alluded to on the free agency market, and it kind of dragged out a little bit there in wintertime, and usually you see a lot more action, in January and early February before spring training starts.
Winter meeting time, yep.
Yeah, winter meeting time, even, December. We didn't see that much this year for whatever reason. And now that we're kind of in full swing here in spring training, all of a sudden you get this flurry of signings of these guys hooking onto teams, looking to upgrade their roster at the last minute here. And there was quite a few signings. We had one of the ones I was wrong about, because I talked about this last week. I said I didn't think there was any chance Cargo was going back to Colorado. And sure enough, a couple days later, he signs with the Colorado Rockies.
I had him slotted to somebody like the Cardinals, maybe as an extra piece, somebody that was maybe a guy away, a veteran bat on the bench. But no, he goes back to a really crowded outfield.
Yeah, and that was the reason why I didn't think they were going to look to bring him back, because they got some young guys there that I thought maybe they would look to give a shot over somebody like Cargo. You're talking David Dahl, Ryan McMahon, who's, he's primarily a first baseman, but he factors into that equation too. So I don't know what they're thinking is there. If Cargo bounces back, it's a great move. But some of these young guys are going to be pushed out or in limited roles now, and we'll see how. I mean, it's a good problem to have for sure, especially Colorado being a playoff team and coming off that a bit of a surprise season last year. So we'll see. I mean, it's adding talent is never a bad thing, especially if you get them at a discounted price. And speaking of discounted prices, Neil Walker signs with the New York Yankees this week.
It's a wonderful signing if you think about it in terms of the dynasty, or where that dynasty started, 95, 96, 97, in those years where they had the core of young talent. Everybody talks about the core 4, but if you include Bernie Williams and the likes in it, you're talking about 7 or 8 core guys for the Yankees in those years, that they went and strategically placed a core of veterans around that core of youngsters and really had a lot of success. Neil Walker's a professional hitter. That's a switch hitter with 15 to 20 homer pop that you're going to plug someplace near the bottom of your order.
Right.
I mean, that's a bottom of the order guy where there's probably a dozen teams out there in Major League Baseball where he's a middle of the order guy. Neil Walker still,
and he has been
5 or 6,
hitting
5th
player.
or 6th, or even hitting up where in second setting the table. And now you're looking at adding that guy as a veteran presence on your bench. He can spell, more than likely he's going to start the season at second base.
Yeah, he looks like he'll be the second baseman on opening day.
He can spell Greg Bird, and you can do other things with Tyler Wade, or Ronald Torreyes is going to have to get time somewhere in there, because you're assuming that with the Yankees cutting Adam Lind or severing ties, which we all knew when they signed Adam Lind to a minor league deal, not giving him a major league deal, even though he performed well in half a season last year. I think he hit 303 in 300 at bats or so. You knew that when they gave him that minor league deal, it was going to be because they just wanted insurance for Greg Bird through the spring. But Greg Bird's been healthy, swinging the bat, so they didn't need Adam Lind. And you and I had spoken earlier in this week when they cut Adam Lind about how that's really a product of them signing Neil Walker. They don't need Adam Lind anymore. So
absolutely, yeah. And like you said, if Greg Bird does go down, or if they need to give him a day off, you plug Neil Walker in there. I mean, he's not a natural first baseman, but he certainly can fit in there as a temporary guy for injury or just some rest. And then you throw in your Ronald Torreyes at second base for a game or two. And the price that they got him for is it's very, very cheap compared to what his salaries have been. He's a guy that was making $17 million last year.
So that's another economical move for Brian Cashman. Pretty strategic, the way that he continues to do this. There's been a lot of talk in Yankee land about not going after a Mike Moustakas. If they were going to go get a Neil Walker, what's the deal? Why did they leave Moustakas on the table? But Moustakas had draft picks assigned, draft pick compensation. So the Yankees would have lost good draft picks in order to sign Moustakas at $3 million more.
I think that's a huge reason he ended up back in Kansas City, is because obviously he was coming from Kansas City, and there's no draft pick compensation.
So there was talk with Boris holding Moustakas out past June 20th. June something. I believe it's after it might be sooner than that. It was after the first year player draft. So that's usually the first week in June. But there was talks about Boris holding him out until past the first week in June, because he wouldn't have had that draft pick compensation tied to him for next year per the collective bargaining agreement.
And he'd get a richer deal and potentially a longer term deal.
And not to skew off of the Neil Walker thing, but speaking of the collective bargaining agreement, you got to think that the general weather of this free agent season has been really pushed by that collective bargaining agreement. In addition to maybe some follies on the part of, you look at a lot of the clients that were left really deep into the season that are now settling for 1-year deals, either rejected the qualifying offer or they have Boris as an agent.
Yeah.
And it's, so maybe the owners were taking a stand. It's tough to say. We kind of saw that 1-year deal thing happening, but there's going to be some people that hurts. It hurt Stephen Drew a couple years ago when he rejected.
Oh yeah, it's a huge gamble for the player, and that's why they hang around and try to wait for a multi-year contract. Lance Lynn's a good example. He signed a 1-year deal with Minnesota. It could be great for Lance Lynn. He could go out there and have a good year and command some more money on the market next year. Or he could go out there and blow out his elbow and have Tommy John surgery and never be heard from again. So it's a risk, but they kind of the franchises kind of forced their hand there, especially towards the middle of spring training, once the initial group of free agents did sign, and then you saw your Lance Lynn's and your Arrietas and your Neil Walkers just kind of sit there for months.
Speaking of Neil Walker here, just to address any Yankee fans that are out there and maybe had any apprehension about what they just did for the money that they did it for and for the amount of time that they've done it for, it's really not that big of a commitment in terms of how they went about it.
Oh, in terms of Major League Baseball money, it's peanuts.
2010, he's 280, 12 and 66, 12 and 83 the next year, 14 and 69, 16 and 53 with. He's consistently scoring 75 to 80 runs. I mean, that's the kind of guy that you need. And a lot of teams, like we said, they're looking for that guy to be in the middle of the order. The Yankees got a steal there.
He's consistently a 2-WAR player. For people that aren't familiar with the term WAR, the stat, it's wins above replacement. So he's consistently a valuable player to a team.
And so explain that to us a little bit. Does that mean that by the end of the year, that player will produce 2 more wins for a team in lieu of another player?
That's basically the idea of it, is over your average graded player, Neil Walker will be personally responsible for 2 extra wins on your record at the end of the year, is the way that stat works. So, say the Yankees don't sign Neil Walker. The way this works, in theory, say they were a 90-win team. The way his stats have proven him to be a quality player, that bumps them up to a 92-win team. And, of course, injuries and other things and several other factors. But, yeah, that's the idea behind the WAR stat. And he's consistently been a 2+ WAR guy almost every year in his career. I mean, at least the last 6-7 years. And to get him at that price, $4 million when he was making 17 last year, and I want to say over 10 the year before, $4 million to plug a guy like that into your lineup, that's a heck of a signing. Especially a lineup that is already loaded. You can't complain about something like that.
No, and they go out and they add Brandon Drury. No, there's nobody that logically thought that the Yankees were going to enter the season starting a rookie in the infield this year. I didn't see it happen with how far underneath the luxury tax threshold that they were managed to stay, spending less money than they did last year, but adding the NL MVP. I didn't see it ever happening. Honestly, I thought that they may be more active on another starter, but now it's down to Alex Cobb, and I don't think that the Yankees are looking to commit anything more than a year, given the wealth that they have coming up, or the potential wealth that they think they have coming up. I don't think that they're going to be willing to go more than a year on another starter.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, and you saw this week too, Aaron Boone announced that Jordan Montgomery is going to be the fifth starter. And I think that they are content at this point, going into opening day with the pitching staff that they have. Now, will that change around deadline day coming into midsummer here? If the Yankees are right in the contention for the division and the AL pennant, then yeah, of course they're going to be looking out there, to buy some players. And if somebody goes down, they have the prospect capital to make a move. But yeah, as of today and the next couple weeks and March 29th, which is opening day, I think you're looking at the pitching staff as it is.
15 days.
15 days, yeah.
I can't wait. Speaking of pitching staffs, and we'll parlay that into something more in the AL East. It really looks as if the Red Sox also are backing out of the starter market, and they're going to go full bore with what they have. David Price and Chris Sale, Eduardo Rodriguez and Stephen Wright, Drew Pomerantz. That's a bevy of names that they're looking to maybe get something out of the bottom of that rotation.
And you might see them make a play for Cobb, but I would be surprised. Of course, I'll say that now, and they'll probably sign him tomorrow.
Well, it is Dombrowski. As everyone knows, Dombrowski's not afraid to, spend it. Never has been. Is there draft pick compensation assigned to Cobb? I don't even know.
I'm not sure how that works with him, and it may depend on how much he signs for too.
Yeah, I actually gotta look into that. But the Red Sox are going to go with what they have. It's you're strong up at the top for sure. The bullpen might be, other than Kimbrel back there, might be maybe the Achilles heel for that team. But on paper, that team looks really, really solid. With that starting nine, that lineup.
Anytime you got Chris Sale as your ace, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that at the top of your rotation.
Everybody out there in baseball world knows probably that I'm a diehard Yankee fan, but I will say what up to Alex Cora, University of Miami Hurricane alum. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what Alex Cora can do as a first-year manager.
It is kind of interesting.
Stepping into not just Cora, but Cora and Boone.
There's a whole bunch of rookie managers this year. You got and they're
sure.
on some good contending teams too. I mean, you got the Red Sox and the Yankees with rookie managers, the Washington Nationals with Dave Martinez, rookie manager.
Sure.
Gabe Kapler in Philly.
And I'm looking forward to Gabe Kapler and Craig Counsell.
Counsell's been there for a couple of years,
Yep.
but he's a young manager too. Couple other ones I know. Let's see, who else do we have here?
We're starting to see players that we grew up
Mickey
watching.
Callaway, the Mets manager.
Players that we grew up watching and trading their baseball cards are now becoming the managers in Major League Baseball. But it's good. We're looking forward to it.
So speaking of Chris Sale too, he threw 5 scoreless innings, struck out 7 in his second spring start yesterday. So he's ready to go. He's in midseason form. That's a guy with
dangerous.
his motion, the way he throws, he
Dangerous.
kind of makes me nervous. I mean, as a Yankees fan, maybe not nervous, but speaking as if
If I was a left-handed hitter, I'd be very, very
oh yeah,
nervous.
well of course, yeah. If I was a hitter
coming from
facing
first
him, I'd be
base.
extremely nervous. But his throwing motion is, man, he's a guy that it kind of scares me a little bit.
There's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah, and he is a lanky guy too.
Sure.
So we'll see. He hasn't had any issues yet, and he is at the top of his game already in spring training. So he's looking pretty good.
It's a devastating 1-2 punch that he has.
David
right.
Price, I don't know. I wouldn't have too much confidence in him, but he's a proven veteran arm, lefty again. And we'll get to him a little bit more later.
Yeah,
on.
we can definitely get to David Price later on, but I will say, I've never been reserved on this opinion, although our listeners haven't heard it. I am under the assumption that the David Price deal, if it's not already, will be or go down as the worst deal in Major League Baseball history.
Oh yeah, they're on the hook for a long time. On
you're
deal.
talking if he makes his 32 starts or 33 starts in a season. If he makes those starts, you're talking almost $1 million a start. And they're committed long-term to that. So I think that, 2 signings by the Red Sox recently could rank very similar in stature as being one of the worst contracts in Major League Baseball history. The Pablo Sandoval deal was extremely bad for them as well. But David Price, I'm not very high on David Price. And I was when he was with Tampa Bay.
Even Detroit in the time he spent in Toronto that year, he was
well,
awesome.
Well, I hated him that year. I mean, and rightfully so. He wasn't very nice to Yankees and Yankee fans, and he pitched pretty damn good. But the Yankees always make David Price their bitch. So
they do a pretty good job against Sale too, for that matter.
Which is surprising because given their history or track record, if you're a 162 game Yankee fan, you realize that they have trouble with the lefties traditionally during the season. But David Price, I can just remember Jeter's 5 for 5 day with the 3,000th hit.
Oh yeah,
that was, that's just a microcosm of what the Yankees have done to
right
Price.
There.
So I'm all right with that. What else?
Dave Bandick is chiming in. He says the best move for Price in Boston would be to trade him, but nobody's going to take that contract on. And the last part of his statement is the key there for me. Is there's no way you're getting rid of him with that money owed to him. And
no, you're going to have to eat a significant portion of that contract plus cough farm up.
Football in particular, with football free agency in full swing right now, you see a lot of pretty big contracts, and with the exception of a guy like Kirk Cousins, not a lot of that money is guaranteed. Whereas in baseball, you sign David Price to that contract, you're paying him that money.
Yes.
And
a la Carl Pavano,
A-Rod too.
Agawa. Well, yeah. That might be something for when we have a little more time to get into what happened with the Yankees and A-Rod. But I'm on A-Rod's side with some of that stuff. I think he got done dirty, and I think that at the point in time that he was told he couldn't play anymore and suggested to stay out, I think that he still could have been a productive major leaguer. There were talks about him foregoing what the Yankees had offered him and going and signing with the Marlins at one point in time. I don't know if you remember that. Alex being another Miami guy. I don't know. That's maybe for another show. We can talk about the A-Rod deal.
We could go on and on that one.
I think A-Rod got done dirty in a lot of that. For somebody that went on national TV and actually admitted to wrongdoing, which is a leg up on what a lot of people have done.
I think he's surprisingly good as a commentator too.
I'm for whatever reason, I don't think that I'm surprised, but I know exactly what you're saying because I think that he's wonderful, and I really enjoy
working ESPN Sunday Night Baseball now too.
I love it. There's a lot of haters out there, and you'll see that whenever ESPN discusses A-Rod or anybody for that matter, MLB Network or somebody puts something about A-Rod up, you read a lot of hate. But I genuinely like him, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward.
He's obviously one of the more controversial characters in baseball.
He is, but I view him in a different light than I view a lot of people because he did admit. He came out and admitted and not necessarily owned it because, he did sue Major League Baseball afterwards and sue the Players Union. And there's a lot of other stuff that went involved, and a lot of people hate him for it. But, at least, him and Jason Giambi and Andy Pettit, at least some of these guys were out there and they said, you know what, I just named 3 Yankees too. That's awesome, right? There were other teams, I swear. But I don't know. I have an affinity for A-Rod still.
So
sorry to go off on a tangent.
no,
Where were we, sir?
Like I said, we could talk a lot about that, and we will over the course of the season. I'm sure we'll get into some A-Rod talk and whether it's his baseball commenting, announcing career or his playing career, any of that controversy. That's a topic you could go on for hours about. But let's move on to a little bit more, a few more news and notes here from this past week. Let's see, we covered Mike Moustakas signing with the Royals. Jonathan Lucroy signed with the Oakland A's. Who else do we have here? Lance Lynn to the Minnesota Twins. And Jake Arrieta with the big deal to the Philadelphia Phillies, which I think it's a little bit more money than I thought he was going to get at this point in free agency. But as far as just this year's outlook, I think it's a great move for the Phillies, strengthening that rotation. And I mentioned him last week as my pick for second place in that division behind Washington. And I think adding an arm like Arrieta, he's not the Jake Arrieta of 2-3 years ago, but he's still, a top-end pitcher, maybe a number 2 starter. And that's a key piece to them. And they've added some other pieces, and they could be a sleeper for that wild card spot this year. I don't think they're going to give the Nationals a run for the division, but I think they could be in the mix this year, and they got some good young players like Hoskins.
Yep.
Signed Carlos Santana.
Odubel Herrera,
they've
Franco.
got some good pieces there, some good young players, J.P. Crawford. So we'll see what happens there. But
Aaron Nola, the guy's a stud.
Aaron Nola is another good pitcher too.
Yeah,
I think he's starting opening day for them, and he's a good young arm. He was great last year.
You want to know
his future looks pretty bright.
You want to know if not to say that the Arrieta signing doesn't say that the Phillies are serious about this year, but they locked him up for 3 years, similar to what the Phillies were involved with the Texas Rangers, where the Texas Rangers were kind of out of it. They ended up making a little roaring run at the end of this particular season. I believe it was 2016, but they're kind of out of it at the All-Star or at the trade deadline, and decided to go out and add Cole Hamels because he was under control at a reasonable contract.
Right. About what was this? 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
I think the 2016 season, he was under control for 3 more years, a reasonable contract that at free agency he's going to get more than what he's already signed at. So it made sense for the Texas Rangers to say, you know what, maybe we're out of it this year, but let's lock this guy up at this market value right now and forecast that the next 2 years we're going to get value out of him when we really try to make a run at it. So maybe that's what the Phillies are looking at. But if you want to know if the Phillies are serious, you're going to see him at another bat, even if it's another Neil Walker kind of guy. Then you'll know that the Phillies might be serious at trying to make a run at the wild card this year. I don't disagree with you. Good core of talent there, and they could definitely make a run. And Arrieta puts them in a really good position. But I still reserve the right on the Mets there for whatever reason, and we're going to talk about some of that later on too.
Speaking of the Mets, a note I have here: Yoenis Cespedes hurt his wrist and got a cortisone shot.
Ruh-roh.
Now that's a little concerning.
Par for the course, though, and pun intended, given his affinity for golf.
He is a guy that just always has nagging injuries. He's an elite bat and great outfielder. The arm he's got from the outfield, great player, but he's another one that can't stay on the field. And a wrist injury, that can mess with your swing all year. I mean, that could linger on and cause some problems. So that's something to watch going forward. The Mets are playing it off like it's a minor injury, and maybe it is, but even a minor injury at this point, coming into opening day a few weeks away, that could be trouble, and that could be something to look at. And Michael Conforto's already, he's been hurt.
Yep.
He's on the road back. He probably won't be in the lineup until May, they're saying. So yeah, right off the bat, the Mets with the last couple of years, just with the injury bug, it's already kind of hitting them. It hasn't hit the pitchers yet.
It's hit the pitchers for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that the Mets are in a position to want to see that start happening to their position players, especially given the importance of Conforto and Yoenis Cespedes as linchpins in that lineup, a lineup that a lot of people might forget that they went out and quietly signed Todd Frazier. Prior to, and pretty much, they gave Todd the extra year, or was it 3 years? No, they signed him for 3.
I think it was 3 years.
So it's an extra 2 years. It's a hometown guy. He's still young enough. 35 homer potential. They had Jay Bruce. That's, You know,
they added. I mean, not that he's kind of a shell of his former self, but they added Adrian Gonzalez there too.
that's right.
So they've picked up some veteran bats there, and you know, if those pitchers can stay healthy, which is a big if, the way things have gone, then you know the sky is the limit for that team.
Huge, just swing and miss potential up and down that 5-man rotation.
We touched on their strength and conditioning program a little bit in our first show.
We did, and we talked about why
they
haven't revamped it. But you got news on that.
I did go back and look because I was curious, because their strength and conditioning, you know, the reputation of that part of their organization it was a joke.
Because this isn't the first time
and
that
they did
they've
revamp
done
it.
that. But
so with Mickey Callaway coming in, they did revamp that whole part of the organization, which needed to be done. And you know, hopefully for the Mets' sake, you know, they have a little bit better luck here with some changes and some of these pitchers stay healthy.
How many Mets can you name? You know, pretty much off the top of your head, that got hurt and missed significant portions of time on big, huge contracts. You know, it has
David Wright.
David Wright,
you know, the first name that comes to mind.
Mo Vaughn. No strength and conditioning in Mo Vaughn's world.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I don't know that any strength and conditioning.
You know, even if
coach
you go
can help
back,
him.
you go back into the early '90s with Generation K, Jason Isringhausen, Bill Pulsifer, Paul Wilson. That never ended up coming to fruition like it should have. You know, Isringhausen went on to have a pretty okay career with St. Louis Cardinals as their closer.
Too. He was
with Oakland, but and we're going to touch on the Cardinals in a little bit in a viewer request. But you look all the way back to Generation K, and Pulsifer probably didn't throw the amount of innings that everybody thought that he was going to throw, and Isringhausen went on to be a relief guy, not a starter, with that devastating knuckle curve. I don't know if you remember that pitch, but
Yeah,
that thing,
Yep.
that thing was
Yeah,
one
he
of
was
the
a really good
one of the
closer.
sickest pitches
Once
I've
he
ever
settled
seen.
into that role, he was good
And
at it.
Paul Wilson, former Florida State Seminole. They were really expected to do things back in the day, and now you got 5 or 6 pitchers that have all been injured in this next go around of that kind of Mets up and coming young whole rotations basically in their minor league system. But you look at the Wheelers and the Steven Matts. Matt Harvey has had his struggles.
Yeah,
and
Syndergaard last year missed almost the whole season.
Syndergaard might not have anything to do with the strength and conditioning deficiencies with that, because that kid's just a specimen. And I just think maybe throwing as hard as Thor was throwing, he might have done something with that.
He's already thrown over 100.
It was the muscle here, I believe, right, that he tore.
But he had some issues the year before with some bone spurs in his elbow. He pitched through it, and he pitched well. But yeah, he's had his own issues too, and as any New York Met has really in the last couple decades.
David Wright's a tough case to kind of look at there, because David Wright, you know, if you forecast his peak value numbers, you know, across maybe a 15-year career, you might be talking about a borderline Hall of Famer.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, potentially adding a ring to his resume, but definitely the Silver Sluggers, the All-Stars, maybe a batting crown or a home run title.
Speaking of David Wright, he just had a bit of a setback in his comeback attempt, too.
It's
They're saying he's baseball activities, no baseball activities for probably about 2 months.
Well, you know, it's probably time to close the book on David Wright, I would assume.
Yeah, I would think so.
You know, it's David Wright.
He's an easy guy to root for. He really is.
He is, but that's David Wright. If you're a Mets fan, I guess, and I can't speak intelligently on that subject, but if you're a Mets fan, I guess you kind of got to be over it now.
Yeah, it's time for the next chapter.
Because
get into
committed,
coaching.
he's committed
Get
money.
into broadcasting. It's time for something
he's
else.
He's tying up money that could be spent elsewhere, and so I guess I could see frustration from a Mets fan point of view. But you know, David Wright's an easy guy to root for, and you know, you wish him the best. But it's probably about that time. Maybe an American League team at some point in time where he doesn't have to be out in the field with his condition. And I believe his condition is something along the lines of shattered discs.
Yeah, it's a chronic back
something
injury.
Something with his discs in his back. And, you know, that can be debilitating, especially for an athlete that's out there playing the hot corner. So, you know, we wish David Wright the best, but, you know, maybe time to hang up the Spurs, my man.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. He had a good career when he was healthy, and time for the next chapter. Couple other things quick. There's still a few free agents hanging out there. Greg Holland, real good relief arm.
And he's you got to expect that. He's going to land very soon, given, it's like fantasy drafts, too.
Well, and we'll get into the Cardinals in a little bit, and I think he would be a great fit for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Because they lost the Sung Young-Oh,
And they picked up Luke Gregerson to be their closer. He's had some struggles in spring.
And he was never really a closer.
He never really was a good reliever, but
a good setup guy, matchup guy.
Anything they have tried so far in spring is not working out too well. So you could see Greg Holland ended up with
There's
the
a couple
Cardinals.
other teams, the Texas Rangers are closer list right now, depending on, gauging their seriousness and trying to compete in that pretty good AL West out there.
You can see him end up with the Cubs potentially too.
Not,
so we'll see what happens there. Good
Absolutely.
relief arm still available. Melky Cabrera still out there. Alex Cobb, we mentioned. Jose Bautista still out there.
That's a guy. That's an interesting guy right there. You're probably looking at an American League team. Are the Blue Jays still one bat away? We discussed yesterday. I think you and I had a little bit of a talk about the Blue Jays rotation. It's okay. If you can get hot at the beginning of the season, maybe get a 3 or 4 game lead coming out of April.
The question with him is, does he have anything left? And he was awful last year. And
Agreed.
I don't know how old he is, but he's been
got to
around
be
a
pushing
long
40.
time.
He's
got to be up there.
38 or so.
Yeah, that sounds about right. He's got to be close to that. So he's been around for a long time. I don't know that he's got anything left. Rogers Center is a phenomenal hitter's park, and that didn't even really help him much last year. Anyway, there's still a few free agents out there, and we'll see what happens in the coming days there.
He is.
The Yankees sent
38 years
Gleyber
old.
Torres, 38 years old, so there you go. Gleyber Torres was sent down to the minors, which makes sense for service time reasons and because of the Neil Walker signing. It's not a big surprise to either of us.
No, but people that are looking at it on the surface that aren't understanding that they're gonna not start his service clock. They're gonna wait until June so they have him under control for a whole other year.
And for those that don't know what the service clock talk means is if you hold him out from making his major league debut, not even necessarily his debut, but you hold him out from being a regular in the majors for a certain amount of time, you get an extra year of control by doing that. He's coming off of Tommy John surgery, so it's a major injury. I mean, not as devastating as it is to a pitcher, but it's smart to put him in the minors, let him get comfortable, and then later on in the season, God forbid somebody gets hurt, you bring him up, and you see what he can do.
Sure. And just to, kind of touch on what he was just talking about organizational control, what happens in Major League Baseball, which is different from some other sports, first-round picks in the NFL, there is slotting in the NFL draft, and they are slotted to certain money thresholds where they're guaranteed money, being at that 1 through 5 pick or 5 through 10 pick or however it works in football. But rookies don't get big contracts. Aaron Judge is playing for $725,000 this year, $760,000.
Yeah,
so
even Chris Bryant with the Cubs, NL MVP, World Series champion, is making just over $1 million a year.
So organizational control is, I believe, 6 years from being on the minor league roster, or 6 years from being on the 40-man roster, and being Rule 5 eligible, and being protected on that 40-man roster. You got 6 years of organizational control, where you're not paying these guys these $23 million contracts, because a guy like Aaron Judge would be making a significant amount of money, more than he's, based on production, more than $700,000.
Well, look at what Giancarlo Stanton is making. That's what happens when you're that quality of player in your early years.
Sure.
And your organizational control runs out. Is you have to. I mean, you don't.
You got to
necessarily
pony
have
up.
To, but look,
Well, they
that's
become
what the Marlins did is ponied up a $300 million contract for him.
in 10 years.
10-year deal.
And that's almost more of a taboo than the money. Is the years, the amount of years. You're not going to see that much anymore after people got burnt by A-Rod's second contract.
David Price.
A lot of people don't look at A-Rod's first 10-year contract. That really was not a bad contract if you look at the production in that contract for both the Rangers and the Yankees. Clearly the Yankees or somebody got burnt at the end of that contract. Albert Pujols, another 10-year deal that, the back end of it isn't really paying off. So you're not going to see those handed out like candy much anymore. Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Carlos Correa, when they come off of their initial contracts, they're going to be, looking at 10 years, will put them into their age 35 season. So you may see it on that, but you're never going to see a guy come off of his first contract at age 28 and sign a 10-year contract to go to 38.
Right. And two of those guys you mentioned are up for free agency after the season.
Yes,
Bryce Harper and Manny
Machado.
Machado. So we'll see what happens there. They'll be getting some
so just to
major
say that,
paydays.
By the Yankees moving him down there, that's an extra year of the 6 where the Yankees don't have to pony up. So if he's an all-star in 2020 or 2021, the Yankees didn't spend a year on him by bringing him up until June. And that's what Neil Walker does. On the surface, people that aren't Yankee fans and not understanding that, they're trying to save the service time on him are going to look at the stats, and he did struggle. So it is warranted in many facets that he start the season down. And I like the fact that there's not going to be any pressure on him. He's going to come up. He's going to be a 9-hitter. He's going to be expected to play second base, not his natural position, but going to be playing second base, probably a little bit easier than being the shortstop in New York. And indeed, he's got that cemented down anyway. But if Neil Walker gets hot, Neil Walker's going to play, and you're going to see the Yankees hold back on Torres for as long as they can. But he's definitely going to be in the cards August, September.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. And last show I mentioned the Yankees just have a wealth of talent in the farm system right now, and it's the first time that we can say that. And it started a couple years ago, but it's the first time that we could really say that probably since the 90s, really. And it's not a bad thing to put Gleyber Torres and some of these other guys, Andujar potentially in the minor leagues, and let them continue to develop and bring them up when you need them.
Absolutely.
Instead of forcing them into the role and potentially rushing them into the majors and crushing their confidence and
confidence
hurting
is
their
huge.
development.
Not everybody's going to come out and be Cody Bellinger or Chris Bryant. Not everybody's going to come out and be that. You're going to see a lot of people come out like the Alex Bregman deal. If you see Alex Bregman got hot and served a huge purpose with that Houston team. But when they first brought him up, he struggled. I think he was 0 for his first 30-something. So he struggled at first, and it was easy when you're mixed into a lineup like that to not have to worry about it and sit back, relax, and find your groove. And now Alex Bregman isn't just a little cog in that machine. He's a big cog. He's
World Series champion now, and he was a key contributor.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we get on to our next segment here, I want to give a shout-out to a couple sponsors here. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties. When it comes to buying a home in the Mohawk Valley, you got to have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222. For commercial and residential properties, log on to centralnewyorkhomes.com for complete and accurate and up-to-date listings. And to tie into that, Priceless Inspections. Josh is a friend of mine, and I did have Josh inspect my home before I bought it, and it was a great experience, and I would highly recommend him to anybody that's buying or selling a home. A good quality home inspection is priceless. Call Josh Amodio at 315-525-8725 for your next home inspection. In-depth and detailed reports, thorough inspections, and he pays attention to details. Josh has been in the construction business his whole life, and he knows the importance of a quality home inspection. Call Josh before you put your home on the market, looking to buy a home, or even if you just want to update your home. Josh can do all of that for you. Call him today, 315-525-8725. And both those sponsors are people I've done business with as recent as September when I did buy my house. Coldwell Banker Faith also helped me sell my home and come highly recommended. I worked with Amanda Reinfelds. There's a whole bunch of great realtors there. So if you are looking to buy or sell a house, Coldwell Banker, and then when it comes time for inspection, I wouldn't call anybody else other than Josh personally, and that comes from personal experience of somebody who's done business with both of them. So Coldwell Banker Faith and Priceless Inspections, check them out. So on to our next segment. 3 up, 3 down.
3 up, 3 down. Sean's weekly take on 3 players in fantasy baseball that you should tend to go towards and 3 players that you should tend to stay away from. Who do you got for 3 up, my man?
So 3 up, I got there's some late round guys. Michael Taylor, the Washington Nationals. He's a guy you can get late in drafts, potential
Potentially
2020 guy.
Undrafted.
Yeah, potentially undrafted. So he's somebody to keep an eye on. There's not too many players that are 2020, which is 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases.
Sure.
Potential. And I want to say he was just short of that last year, but he played, maybe 2/3 of the season.
How many of those guys do the Nationals need?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's a team that can run on you for days and crush homers on you too. That lineup is ridiculous. And that's the other thing about Michael Taylor is he is in such a good lineup.
And just hiding out.
As long as he puts up a decent average and kind of gets his plate discipline under control a little bit, that's a guy to keep an eye out for.
You're looking at runs scored too.
There. Runs scored, RBIs with those guys getting on base.
Sure.
I don't know where he's going to be in the lineup, and it could depend on just how hot he is at the time, or if he struggles, they might put him towards the bottom. But somebody to keep an eye out is a really late round guy, if not undrafted.
Not in our league. He's not going to go undrafted in our league, no.
Yeah, in your average league, we'll say. I got another outfielder here, Cleveland Indians. And this is another guy. I don't know if he's quite got the developed power to hit 20 home runs yet.
We're going to find out in a second.
But he certainly has the speed to steal you 20, 30 bases. Bradley Zimmer, another good young talent. And another guy very similar to Michael Taylor that's got to kind of get his plate discipline reined in a little bit. He strikes out a little bit too much, but another guy with great talent that you might be able to get at the end of a draft or just off the waiver wire at some point. And a pitcher, we brought up the Mets starting rotation earlier. Zach Wheeler. He's a guy that's coming off a couple of years of pretty bad injuries.
Having a tremendous spring.
Very good spring. He had a little bit of a rough outing yesterday, but his overall spring training body of work so far, which is, obviously a limited sample size.
Sustained velocity up around 97.
But very promising things going on with him. He's competing to be in that starting rotation with Steven Matz. And Matz, he's kind of had the opposite spring training as Wheeler, where he started out terrible. He was getting shelled. And then his last start, which was a couple days ago, he actually turned it around a little bit and showed some promise. So that's a starting rotation battle to keep an eye out for.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the most prized possession out of all of those Mets arms at one point in time, Zach Wheeler, prior to the acquisition of Syndergaard from Toronto.
Right.
He was the most prized of all of those, and he just never could get over the hump.
Carlos Beltran trade, when they traded Beltran to the San Francisco Giants, that tells you, how long he's been in the organization now, but he's still a young arm. He's coming off some injuries, like I said, but somebody to keep an eye on there.
I love it.
So the 3 down aspect of it here, there's these names are a little bit bigger names that are trending down. David Price.
Talked about him a few minutes ago.
So injury prone, where you would have to draft him in a fantasy baseball draft is, you're banking on him being healthy for the whole season, and that is a big gamble, I think, at that point.
Worst contract in Major League Baseball history. You heard it here first.
He's playing in the AL East, a whole bunch of hitters parks there.
Whole bunch of hitters, too.
Whole bunch of some major hitters.
Josh Donaldson, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge,
Manny
Machado.
Yep. Chris Davis when he's healthy.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Rays did everything they could to make sure that they didn't contribute to that whole bunch of hitters thing.
We'll give Kevin Kiermaier a shout out. He's not going to hit you too many home runs.
No, but what did they dump? 60 homers between Lomo and Souza.
Yeah, and Longoria probably.
And Longoria too. I forgot that Longoria wasn't there either. So thank you to the Tampa Bay Rays for weakening the AL East.
Next one I got is an outfielder from the Baltimore Orioles, Adam Jones. Solid player. He's good in the field. When it comes to fantasy, he's kind of turned into an average guy. His power has been trending down. He doesn't steal bases anymore. Again, decent player. I don't think he's anybody that's going to win you a fantasy league. He's even as a mid-round pick.
He's a bigger name then, but almost like a comp to their Nick Markakis for a long time. He's just a lot of people view, and I'm not here to say that Adam Jones isn't a superstar in his own right. But he's not what you would think in terms of value. So I totally agree with you. Great player, consistent. But he's a 285, maybe 15 and 70 guy.
Yeah, it's
You
about
know,
right.
You know, and it's probably going to be a flashy 285, 15, and 70, and it's going to be some over-the-wall catches, and you know, his defensive runs saved are probably, you know, I don't have it in front of me, but, you know, he's probably ranks in the upper echelon of Major League outfielders for defensive runs saved, and that's still good, and he holds value in that regard, but, you know, if you...
yeah, he's still, you know, when it comes to just, you know, evaluating him as a Major League asset, he's a good player.
But he's not a superstar.
From a fantasy baseball standpoint,
he's not a top 10
he's
first-round
not
pick.
giving you those numbers. He really isn't. So the third one I have trending down is big-time hyped prospect. Made huge news with
I know who you're gonna say.
visiting all sorts of teams. You know, 90% of Major League Baseball went after him this last fall. And you go ahead and take a guess, and I'm sure you're going to get it.
Shohei Ohtani.
Ohtani. Big time hype there. The problem with him is, as we discussed last show, is I don't think you're going to get much more in best case scenario than 20 starts.
I totally agree.
So from a pitching standpoint, you're not getting, you know, a full season out of him. You know, even if he's good, he's young, and they're going to keep his innings down.
Not a whole lot of money committed there. So if the experiment doesn't work,
it's a great pickup for the Angels.
It is
great pickup,
and there's a reason that so many people, you know, with the international pool money collected, you know, the Yankees. You look at the Yankees made a play for him too. So you know, we're not going to sit here and say, you know, I told you so, because the Yankees made a play for him too. But you could see a lot of teams that were making these deals just to save up international pool money to be able to go out and sign him.
Oh yeah, there's teams making trades for more
international
pool money, including
the
Yankees.
Yeah, including the Yankees.
You know, with Ohtani as the you know,
as
the end
target.
goal, as the target. So from a pitching standpoint, you know, you're not getting a full season out of the guy. From a hitting standpoint, he's been struggling in spring. So I don't know how much of a two-way player he's going to be. The hype there, I think, is going to catch somebody where they're going to want to draft him and, you know, get the shiny new toy. But I don't know that they're going to get a return on that investment.
Oh, it's like Vandalay Industries. He should focus on the importing and not the exporting.
Yeah, there you go.
Pick a side, Ohtani. Pick one.
So
60 feet, 6 inches away. You got to pick one, though.
That's our fantasy baseball talk.
3 up, 3 down.
Speaking of fantasy baseball, this Sunday is the 15th annual Electric Company Fantasy Baseball Draft.
I can't wait.
And we are going to be down here at the studios at Disruption Network, down here at the D, and we're going to broadcast this. I don't know how this is going to go.
I know exactly how it's going to go.
There's always some crazy antics.
Pretend.
It's going to be great. I just, who knows what kind of surprises will happen. There's always something. Robbie Danger getting locked in the bathroom and all sorts of fun antics. So.
Hot lunch. It is the day after... the day after Utica St. Patrick's Day parade, so there's going to be a few of you. I won't be participating in those festivities, but there'll be a few of you that are feeling a little under the weather that day, so it just adds to the excitement. You know, how many people in our league are stopping at Rite Aid on the way here to grab a Baseball America or a USA Today spring training preview? How many people? 5 out of 10?
Yeah, that's a pretty good guess. We'll set the over-under at 4.5.
Everybody that comes for this draft and anybody watching at home, we'll play the game, and I'm going to ask. That's going to be the first question. When's the last time you looked at anything baseball related? Bandage, definitely not one of them. Z could be one of them.
Because Paulie always picks it up on the way. He always stops at Rite Aid.
Z commented me, so okay. I figured you were going to be one of them. Z. 7 out of 10. Eric Leo checking in. Eric Leo, one of the few people that's been in that league since its inception.
He's the commish.
He is the commish. Gianna's All-Stars out there representing. So tune in this Sunday. That's going to be our next show. We're going to be having a live draft with a cast of characters. Live from the Disruption Networks here in Utica, New York. It is the greatest day of the year. And it only signifies that we will be about 10 days out at that point, or 11 days out from opening day, the greatest day outside of our draft day. Opening day is a holiday, and I can't wait.
Can't wait. So we're going to be starting, between 1 and 2 o'clock. We've told everybody in the league to get down here at 1 with the hopes of drafting at 2. but there's always some stragglers that don't show up. So till later on. So hopefully by 2:00 we'll be underway in broadcasting here from Disruption Studios.
We're going to spread the word. We'll make sure that we get it out there. But don't be prepared. Maybe a few of us will be prepared enough to give an analytical take on why we're taking a player, or but don't be prepared for too much intelligent conversation going on. Just a bunch of guys drinking some beers and drafting their teams.
Yeah,
but,
it's going to be more crazy antics and fun than it is going to be baseball analysis for sure. That's what makes it great, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you.
Oh yeah,
well, I'm not.
Everybody come prepared. Bring everything you need to hand over to the commissioner, and bring some money for pizza and all that. Gotta make
the
sure
rules. We got to make sure we hammer that home.
Ready
right?
to go.
We got to
that's
share
always
this.
a big
We
thing
got to share
too.
this in our group so everybody hears it. But yeah, the greatest day of the year, our draft day. We're gonna try to get Mike Chicken O'Connor down here to play along, host of the D-line. See if we can get him down here to hang out and maybe do some baseball type stuff. But we're looking forward to having some call-ins. Let us know where you think we should draft somebody. Let us know if you think we just made a really shitty pick, because that's what we're looking for. We want to interact with you guys, and we're really looking forward to getting you involved in our draft. And we're going to be updating the league as the year goes on, I'm sure, letting you know where each of us stands, I'm sure. And I can guarantee you that Sean will be someplace close to the top, and I will be trying to make backdoor deals to either strengthen my team or give somebody else a boost, because that seems to be what I end up doing at the trade deadline every year, is just being a guy that everybody picks from. Syndergaard and Kershaw. They'll be available, boys. Looking forward to see where I pick,
wait.
too. So that brings us probably to our seventh inning stretch time.
Yeah, this is a new segment we're going to be doing here weekly. Seventh inning stretch. So the idea behind the seventh inning stretch is we're going to give our top 7 lists of a whole bunch of varying baseball-related topics. Everything from today we're going to be doing our top 7 managers, and JP and I will each present our lists. We don't compile one list; we do separate lists so we can talk about our differences in our lists, and we'll be doing all sorts of fun stuff, ranking baseball movies, ranking top players, and all sorts of things. So today we're going to do managers, and you want to kick it off here?
Absolutely, I'll kick it off. Where are we going to start? We're going to start at number 7.
Yeah, let's start at the bottom. Let's start with 7.
Okay, number 7. Paul Molitor. Kind of a surprise, but doing good things early on in Minnesota there. Minnesota homer there.
Yeah, he's I believe he's the reigning AL Manager of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. Paul Molitor.
He is?
I believe he is.
So it's tough to keep him off of the
Playoff
list.
team last year in Minnesota. They had a down year the year before, which wasn't, in my opinion, anything to do with his managing.
No, and you're talking about the least turnover in terms of managers, at least that I know in the game. Least turnover between, they went for Tom Kelly for a lot of years, into Ron Gardenhire, and now into Paul Molitor. And you got to assume that somewhere along the line, if you're looking at the Twins' progression and the way that they work, and I believe that we talked about the Twins a little bit on our last show about how they really instill a culture, a Twins culture all the way up. If you're looking at the Twins culture, you're probably looking at Joe Mauer at some point in time being the next manager of the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
When Paul Molitor is all said and done. You're talking about a Hall of Famer with maybe 3,500 career hits, or somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500 career hits, and a World Series title or 2. I think he had one with Toronto as well. So Paul Molitor, I got him at number 7.
I'll give my number 7. I have manager of the Oakland Athletics, Bob Melvin. Oakland obviously has not had that much recent success, but Melvin's had some good years with them, and I think, the last few years with them, kind of being towards the bottom of the standings is not because of Bob Melvin, in my opinion. He's a 2-time manager of the year. I think dealing with Billy Beane and the whole Moneyball philosophy has got to be a major challenge for a manager, and I think he's handled it well. One thing I've noticed about him over the years is that he's one of the bigger platoon guys. Like, he really likes the lefty-righty. You know, there's a lot of times where he doesn't have a set starter at one position that's going to go out there and play every day. He likes to mix and match and play matchups. And, you know, that's his strategy on fielding a team that, you know, in recent years especially is kind of at a disadvantage with on-the-field talent. So got Bob Melvin, number 7.
Bob Melvin, you know, interesting. You look at the new style of the game, and it really originated out there in Oakland. So he's never going to have the high-profile free agent signings probably out there the way that they operate their organization. So he does need to get creative with his lineups, and I couldn't agree more. I like that. I like that pick. My number 6, I got Mike Matheny, manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, and we were supposed to touch on the Cardinals here a little bit for our viewer Tommy out there, who asked us to talk about the Cardinals. You know, you're looking at a strong outfield anyway, you know, with the addition of Marcell Ozuna there.
Yeah, Ozuna was a good pickup.
They may be a couple players away, maybe an arm away, but Mike Matheny, 544 and 428 for good enough for a 560 clip in his career as a manager. Again, another team that is really big on culture. Mike Matheny, you know, Mike Matheny, one of those guys that we've watched play and now managing a Major League Baseball team. But Mike Matheny, anybody that is good for a 560 clip in his career and you know, always in contention. St. Louis is never out of it. Nobody will ever pick St. Louis to finish in the cellar, I don't think, no matter how bad of a team or how you know, uncardinal-like of a team that they're about to roll out onto the field. I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever put St. Louis in the basement of a division. Doesn't mean that they can't finish there, but you know, traditionally they're up near the top and they're fighting for at least a wild card spot. So Mike Matheny, number 6.
So my number 6 is Mike Matheny. Like you mentioned, you know, a 560 winning percentage. He's been managing the Cardinals for 6 years. 4 of those years, he has been in the top 5 of the NL Manager of the Year voting. He's a disciple of Tony La Russa. You know, that's not a bad thing to learn from a guy like him, how to manage a team. He always seems to get the most out of certain players that you just wouldn't expect. Like a couple of years ago, Aledmus Diaz comes to mind. You know, and Jeremy
now a member of the
Hazelbaker
Toronto Blue Jays.
Players like that just seem to play at their ceiling. And I don't know if it is Matheny or what, but it seems to me that he must have something to do with that. You know, getting the best out of his lineup. And so yeah, I have him at number 6 as well. And just to touch on the Cardinals a little bit, you know, like you said, they're a team that is always right there. You know, first, second, third place, it seems like at the worst. Always in contention.
There's been times over the last decade that division has been loaded, very solid from top to bottom.
Yeah, you've had Pittsburgh with some really good years.
And now Chicago.
Cubs, yep.
And even leading up to the Chicago's World Series the 2 years prior to that, well, the 1 year prior to that anyway, the one full season where they were really good. So kudos to the Cardinals for always staying up there.
One other quick note on the Cardinals is Matt Carpenter, I guess, has just recently made his spring training debut. Says he feels great after his status for going into the season on opening day was in question. So everything looks pretty good with Matt Carpenter.
That's good news for a franchise that's desperately missing their Adam Wainwright. So,
all right, so let's move on to 5th.
5th place. I'm going to go with A.J. Hinch, manager of the Houston Astros. You know, not that great above 500. He is above 500 for his managerial career, but he did, he inherited some not so good Houston teams. But, you know, he's averaged 85 wins prior to last season where they had 101. They were 101 and 61, making the World Series and winning it. So I got to have him up there right now. Coming over from Oakland maybe wasn't the most popular pick to take over that Houston team. A Houston team that, you know, really revolutionized this break it down, strip it down, and rebuild it with picks mentality. It took Houston a very long time to do that. They suffered through some 50 win seasons, 110 loss seasons. So A.J. Hinch went there, and I think he went 84 wins, 86 wins, and then 101 wins. So I got A.J. Hinch as my number 5.
I didn't put him on my list, but he was under strong consideration, and he is the epitome of what they call a new age MLB manager, where he's very analytics driven. And Alex Cora is, comes from that same background, the Boston Red Sox new manager. I like AJ Hinch. The reason why I didn't put him in my top 7 yet is just he's only had a few years so far, and I was really close to throwing him in there. But so I have no argument with that one. So my fifth manager is kind of the opposite of somebody like AJ Hinch. It's an old school guy, Clint Hurdle, manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's one of the best motivators in baseball. Very good with young players, developing young talent. The one thing about him, and he just signed a 4-year deal, 4-year contract extension at the end of last year with the Pirates, is that he's a guy that's just got to get out of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is in that, perpetual, we're not going to spend any money mode. They just dumped McCutchen, Garrett Cole. The odds are stacked against the guy when you have an organization that just will not spend money. And he's had some good years, too, with Pittsburgh. He's got him to the playoffs and had some talented teams that he did well with. So I got Clint Hurdle. It
always seemed the last 4 or 5 years that Pittsburgh was one player away, or one real good 3 or 4 game hot streak away from getting over the hump. Maybe another arm for those couple years, because he's a good manager, and he had a really decent core there, and now they're all gone, sadly. And like we discussed earlier prior to the show, probably at some point in time we're going to need to dedicate a nice chunk of our time to the teams out there that are reaping the rewards of the luxury tax and not investing back into their team. And what the Pirates have done, maybe the Marlins, although you see the writing on the wall, what the Marlins are going to do the Houston Astros thing. But Pittsburgh isn't giving Clint Hurdle a lot of weapons in the cupboard. But Clint Hurdle, very good pick.
On to number 4.
I'm going to pick an old school guy too. Maybe perhaps, deemed as an underachiever by a lot because of the amount of money that this team has spent. But I like Mike Scioscia. 18 years as a manager of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or the Anaheim Angels, whichever you prefer to call them. He's worked to a .538 clip across his career. World Series champion in 2003, I believe, 2002, where they beat the Giants. It was 2002. So I got Mike Scioscia. A lot of knowledge in that old catcher's head. I think that he's going to come to his peak value with the Angels coming up here soon. He's probably going to be sent out to pasture, which is kind of sad, unless he does something here.
He's the longest tenured manager right now.
By a long shot, I think, at 18 years. It's got to be pretty – everybody else has got to be pretty much in the distance at 18 years.
So my number 4, I got Buck Showalter, who is kind of a polarizing figure as far as the way people view him as a manager. Some people love him, some people hate him. I happen to be a fan of Buck Showalter.
That's a gut guy right there.
And he is a 3-time manager of the year with 3 different teams: the Yankees, Texas, and Baltimore a few years back. He wins manager of the year every 10 years. 94 with the Yankees, 2004 with the Texas Rangers, and 2014 with the Baltimore Orioles. One thing I like about Buck Showalter is the way he's always thinking long term. Like, he's not going to put his players at risk to just go out there and win a regular season game, where he is looking at the big picture. He's regarded as a bullpen master, the way he manages his relief pitchers. Obsessive attention to detail.
So it's sad. He's a sad figure for another reason. And speaking of long term, what he does with organizations that are scuffling is well renowned. You look at the Arizona Diamondbacks or the New York Yankees, an even better example.
And you have to wonder what would have happened in 1994, the strike-shortened year, when the
Buck
Yankees.
Showalter probably would have got a World Series.
He might have had a World
title.
Series if not for the strike
and
in
you
94.
might be seeing, maybe the Yankees don't go and win 96, 97, 98, or lose to Cleveland in 95. Seattle, I'm sorry. They lost to Seattle in 95, Cleveland in 97. Maybe they don't. Maybe all that doesn't happen. Maybe Seattle doesn't beat them in that series. Maybe Donnie Baseball doesn't retire. Maybe he gets a ring. A lot of maybes with that. But the Yankees, common knowledge that the Yankees were awful in the late 80s, early 90s. They were terrible. And then Buck Showalter really revamped that entire organization, gets them through 95, and then Joe Torre comes along 96 and wins 96, 98, 99, 2000, and goes to the World Series in 2002, or 2003, sorry. We just talked about the 02 World Series, and lost to the Marlins in 03. You look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. He does the same thing with the newly expansioned Arizona Diamondbacks, builds their organization from the bottom up, gets a core young group of players and veterans assembled around him, and no more. He goes and they go to the World Series the year after he's not the manager, with Bob Brenly, and he takes over and wins a World Series with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He does the same thing again with the Texas Rangers. And then Ron Washington takes the Texas Rangers to the World Series the year after or maybe 2 years after.
I think it was 2 years in a row
after Buck Showalter leaves. So it's poor. It's really sad. Poor Buck. You look at what he does for these organizations, and then he never really gets to the promised land. But and you're not looking at it anytime soon with the Baltimore Orioles.
He's a guy that never smiles. I wonder if that's why.
All right, number 3, I got Joe Madden. I'll take Joe Madden. I really like the way that Joe approaches the game. He keeps his guys loose. He has pajama day and costume day, and they have the mobile zoo comes to Wrigley before batting practice, and the guys pet goats. And, I'm just really into that kind of camaraderie stuff that Joe Madden brings to the table. Not a baseball guy for the longest time, and then comes at an older age and really thinks kind of outside the box, but really uses his brain.
He's also a guy, I believe he was Mike Scioscia's bench coach for many years too. I think he was he was the bench coach for the team that Mike Scioscia won the World Series with the Angels.
So I like Joe Madden, and he's been given the tools to go out and compete. But even when he didn't have the tools, who would have thought that the B.J. Upton, Evan Longoria, Carl Crawford, that little, not experiment, that crop of young guys was
David Price, too.
David Price and James Shields was going to be a World Series team, and Joe Madden took that team to the World Series, too. So it's not just with the superstar loaded lineups that Madden's able to succeed. He does more with less.
Yeah,
so,
he took a team that was a 66 win team the year before
to
the World Series, and they beat the Boston Red Sox in the ALCS to get there.
Incredible. So that's my number 3 is Joe Madden of the Chicago
my
Cubs.
number 3 is Bruce Bochy.
Okay.
3 World Series championships. He's been there 4 times because he did it with the San Diego Padres 1998 when the Yankees super team ended up sweeping them that year.
Scotty Brocious, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Manager of the Year award. Great strategist. He's another guy that just gets the most out of his veteran hitters. You see a guy years ago like Aubrey Huff, who was just off the scrap heap and came in and was like top 10 in MVP voting under Bruce Bochy's.
That's another guy that manages the staff better than anybody out there. So, because that's your number 3 and I'm getting to my number 2 next, I got Bruce Bochy as my number 2. Mm-hmm. So, we're on the same page there. Obviously, 3 World Series titles every other year for some even years there with the San Francisco Giants. They have an experiment going out there this year with bringing in some veteran guys, but we know how that helps Bruce Bochy thrive, bringing in veteran presence. Maybe not that to that degree, but we're not talking about bad years last year for Kutch and bad years last year for Longoria. So, maybe that experiment works. And if not, we look for the Frisco Giants to be salesmen around the end of July.
Restock the farm system.
Restock the farm for Bruce Bochy. But that's a guy that I don't see going anywhere long term. He's the face of the San Francisco Giants in those terms. And so we'll skip my number 2 because we just talked about Bruce Bochy, and we'll go to your number 2.
So my number 2 is Tito Francona for the Cleveland Indians, and formerly of the Boston Red Sox, and spent some time with the Philadelphia Phillies. 2 World Series championships. He's been there 3 times. Went there with the Indians a couple of years ago. 2-time Manager of the Year. He's got a .539 career winning percentage, and that's after I don't know how many years he was in Philly, 3 or 4. And he had a losing record every one of those years and still has a .539 winning percentage. He has not had a losing season since 2000. His teams have been above 500 since 2000. There's a couple of years there where he wasn't managing between teams. Another guy that is just a great communicator with his players, very good at relating to his players and developing young talent and making them feel comfortable in a major league clubhouse. So I got Tito at number 2.
All right. Good pick. I like Tito Francona. I like him so much that he is my selection for the best manager in Major League Baseball. Just some quick stats to throw out to echo what you were saying. He's 1483 and 1269, good for a .539 clip over his career. Dealt some shitty hands in Philadelphia at the beginning of his career. Otherwise, you're looking at somebody that might be up in the .575 range.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a 90-win machine from the time that he took over the Boston Red Sox into his days now with the Cleveland Indians. Tito Francona, my number 1 manager in Major League Baseball.
So my number 1 is a guy you talked about at number 3 is Joe Maddon. Everybody talks about what he's done with the Cubs, but to me, and we touched on him already, so I'll keep it kind of brief. The most impressive part of his career and body of work is what he did with the Rays and turning them into a contender. And you mentioned all the stuff he does. He's an outside the box type of guy. There's nobody like Joe Maddon out there. He is quite
great.
Unique character, very entertaining guy to follow and see what he's going to do next. The accolades are there. 3-time Manager of the Year, twice with the Rays. Once, I believe it was his first year with the Cubs, which was not the year they won the World Series. Very creative. He's one of the first guys I remember using defensive shifts all the time. I mean, it's been around for a while, but I remember him just doing some crazy things with the Rays that I hadn't seen before.
And a lot of people took his view on that, and they took a page from his book and started doing that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it's become a big part of the game. It's become such a part of the game now that they're even talking about banning it, which is
right.
It's just ludicrous. Line your players up. Hit it where they ain't is the old adage, right? So if somebody's shifting you with an extreme shift, drop one down the third baseline. They'll be less inclined to do it to you next time, right?
So that's our 7th inning stretch here. Speaking of managers, one quick thing I'll touch on, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's going to be fun to see how these rookie guys do. Aaron Boone.
I'm hoping to add him to my list next year.
Dave Martinez and Mickey Callaway. We'll see how they do. Maybe they will be on the list next year.
Looking forward to it.
So before we go, I want to throw out a Jorge Bonifacio. You are out of the baseline.
Emilio or Jorge?
Jorge. And he's going to be missing 80 games this year.
Out of the baseline.
He is out of the baseline and out of Major League Baseball for the first half of the year, which is a shame because he had a pretty decent rookie year last year, 17 homers. And the Royals need a guy like that in their lineup right now.
Yeah, because the guys like that were in their lineup are all gone, and, they're sitting in places like Milwaukee now.
Except for Moustakas now, but... But and maybe you'll see them go out and sign a guy like Melky Cabrera, who's been there to step in while Bonifacio's out. But, yeah, that's a shame. You're out of the baseline, Jorge.
Why is he out?
He's out.
Jorge Bonifacio, you're out of here.
All right, so I think that's going to do it. Before we go, just another shout out to Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, attorney Nick Pasalacqua, Priceless Inspections, Apple Box Video. Go check out the website, disruptionnetwork.net. We'll be back on Sunday for our EC Fantasy Baseball Draft. And come on down to O'Donnell's. Going to be starting the party down there about 10 o'clock. St. Patrick's Day. Let's do it. Let's hang out.
I'd like to thank Mike Chicken O'Connor for coming in tonight and running the board for us. Much appreciated, my brother. Again, thank the Disruption Networks. Go and like our sister shows, Ease Beats and Bizz, Home Free, Back Talk with Tommy Drama, EC Radio every single day. Go check them out, guys.
Go find our Facebook page, too, The Baseline.
That's right. Thank you very much. This was our second show. We look forward to getting you on our third show and checking out our draft. Peace out, everybody. Thank you very much. Good night.
Out.
Go Cuse.
Hey, it's Adeline Van Dyke from Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in Utica. I always get asked, why do I love real estate? It's very simple. I love my clients. I love every single thing about helping them find or sell their home. Making sure the home is solid and ready for sale, or solid and ready for the buyer's inspection, to making sure that they're getting the best rate on their mortgage, making sure they're getting the best price on their house. You know, just everything involved in the sale is vital. My absolute favorite part of real estate is when a buyer walks into the house they're going to buy. I can feel it before they even know they're loving the house. It's just that obvious. So I'd love to experience that feeling with you. So give me a call. Adeline Van Dyke, Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-404-6431. Or you can find me on Facebook or visit my website at centralnewyork.com/Adeline. Thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you home.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
In the Mohawk Valley, for the best real estate service, you gotta have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222 or www.centralnyhomes.com.